AITA for canceling our cards after my girlfriend said she met the one on her trip? We had been together for almost 4 years. For 2.5 years, we had been sharing the same apartment in a suburb just outside of Chicago, and from my perspective, we were building something solid, something serious. Obviously, we were not perfect. We had our arguments like any couple. Sometimes they were about small things like who forgot to pay the Comcast bill, who left the dirty dishes in the sink, or whether we should be putting more into our savings instead of going out to dinner in the city so often. But there was nothing that, in my mind, indicated we were close to breaking up. Madison had always been very sociable. She had a pretty close group of friends from her sorority days at the University of Illinois, and that never bothered me. They went out together, took trips every now and then, celebrated birthdays, the usual. All of that continued like that until about 6 months ago, when things started to change. That was when Madison lost her job. She worked in digital marketing at a small agency downtown that, as she explained to me, started having financial problems. One Friday afternoon, they called her into a meeting, and there they told her they were going to have to downsize. Her position was among those being eliminated. I remember that day vividly. She arrived back at the apartment with puffy eyes from crying so much. You could tell she was shaken, frustrated, confused, and very worried about money. I tried to calm her down as best I could. I told her that these things happen and that she would surely find something new soon. She had experience and good references. In theory, it should not be that complicated. At least that is what I thought at that moment. The first few weeks after she was laid off were pretty normal. She started updating her LinkedIn profile and her resume, began sending out applications, and even landed a couple of interviews. But over time, everything started to slow down. One company told her she was overqualified. At another, they chose someone with more experience in a specific software, and for several other positions, they did not even reply to her. As the months went by, I started to notice how she was getting discouraged. She spent more time at home, often scrolling on her phone or binge-watching shows on Netflix. There were days when she woke up late, and others when she said she was too stressed to keep sending applications, and honestly, I could not completely blame her. Looking for a job can be emotionally exhausting. Meanwhile, I was practically taking care of everything. The rent, the utilities, the groceries, the gas for her car, the streaming subscriptions, absolutely everything. At that time, it did not bother me. We had been together for years, and from my point of view, supporting each other in difficult times was part of being in a serious relationship. Besides, Madison always said that when she got another job, she would make up for all that effort. But time kept passing. For months, then 5. And really, nothing was changing. It was around the 6th month when she mentioned the trip for the first time. One night, while we were having dinner, she suddenly brought up the topic. The girls are organizing a short trip to Miami, she told me. Just to clear my head a bit. I asked her what exactly she meant. She explained that some of her friends wanted to go to South Beach for a few days. Nothing too complicated. Just the beach, restaurants, and going out at night. Basically, disconnecting from the routine. There was something she said at that moment that stuck with me. I feel like I need it, she confessed. I have been feeling so stuck for months. According to her, the idea was to take a few days to relax and come back with a clearer mind, with more energy to resume the job hunt. At first, I hesitated a bit, not because I did not want her to go, but because our financial situation was not the best. I was covering all the expenses, and a trip to Miami meant spending even more. Madison noticed my reaction right away and hurried to add that it was not going to be that expensive. She explained that they had found a deal on a hotel. She started doing the math, pointing out budget flights on Spirit, splitting the hotel cost among everyone, and simple meals. Still, it was spending money we did not really have, but after seeing her so down and unmotivated for months, it was hard for me to say no. I thought that if this trip really helped her clear her head and come back with a different attitude, maybe it was worth it. So I agreed. I ended up paying for her flights with my airline miles and also added her as an authorized user on one of my credit cards in case any emergency came up during the trip. I made it clear to her to use it only if it was absolutely necessary. Madison was very grateful. In the following days, she would not stop talking about the trip. She showed me pictures of the hotel, of the places they wanted to visit, and of highly rated bars on Yelp. You could see she was excited again. I had not seen her like that in months. She even repeated to me several times that when she returned, She was going to focus completely on getting a job. This is going to be like a fresh start, she told me one night. Finally, the Thursday of the trip arrived. I drove her to O'Hare early in the morning. Her friends were already there. When we arrived, they were all gathered together talking, laughing, and drinking coffee from Starbucks while waiting to board. Before leaving, Madison gave me a long hug. "Thank you for all this," she told me. I replied that she should enjoy herself and make the most of the break. That was the last moment when everything felt completely normal. The first day of the trip was pretty low-key. She sent me some photos of the view from the hotel, a huge pool, and a seafood dish at a restaurant. It seemed like a typical vacation. Friday night, she also texted me. She told me they had gone to a bar near the hotel that was full of tourists. Nothing out of the ordinary. But Saturday morning, something started to feel weird. I woke up around 8 and, as always, checked my phone. I had several Instagram notifications. I almost never post anything, but I do follow quite a few people. Among those notifications, I saw one that said Madison had uploaded a story. I opened the app without thinking too much about it. The first story was a photo of her with her friends on the beach, all smiling with drinks in their hands. The next one was a short video of them walking through an area full of bars, and then the third one appeared. It was a photo of Madison sitting on what looked like a bar's outdoor patio. In front of her was a man I did not know. The image on its own had nothing particularly compromising. They were just sitting and talking. But what really made me stop was the text overlay on the photo. In large letters, it said, "I think I just met the one." At first, I thought it was a joke, something typical people post when they are on vacation and want to be funny. But there was something about all of it that did not quite add up. I checked if there were more stories. Yes, there was another one. It was a short video. In it, Madison was with that same man, clinking glasses. You could not hear clearly what they were saying, but she was laughing, and it was not just any laugh. I looked at the guy's profile name. Madison had tagged him in the story. Out of pure curiosity, I clicked on it. He was a man who looked about our age. His profile was full of photos of trips, motorcycles, parties, and beaches, the typical content of someone who seems to constantly live in tourist places. I did not really know how to interpret all that. My first impulse was to text Madison. I did not want to sound aggressive, so I sent her something simple. "Everything okay?" I waited. About 20 minutes passed, and nothing. I thought maybe she was busy, by the pool, or simply had not seen the message. I decided not to insist at that moment, but the discomfort was already there. A couple of hours later, I received a completely unexpected message. It was from Hannah. Hannah was one of Madison's friends who was also on the trip. We did not talk much, to be honest. We got along well, but our interaction was limited to greetings at parties or birthdays. Her message said, "Hey Ryan, I do not want to overstep, but I think you should talk to Madison." I felt that something was not right. I asked her directly what was going on. It took her a few minutes to respond. When she did, she was quite clear. She is very involved with a guy she met last night. That sentence set wrong with me. A mixture of surprise and annoyance started to form. I asked her to explain. This time she took longer to answer. Finally, she wrote. She met him at a bar. Since then they have barely been apart. This morning she went with him to the beach. At that moment, I felt something inside me tense up. I asked her if she was sure of what she was saying. She answered yes, and then added something else that completely threw me off. "I think she wants to stay here longer." That I definitely did not expect. Staying more days meant changing flights, paying for more hotel nights, and reorganizing the whole plan. It did not make any sense. Without thinking too much about it, I wrote to Madison. "What is going on?" Several minutes passed before she replied. Her message was short, almost curt. "I am busy. We will talk later." Nothing more. Not an explanation, no context, no attempt to reassure me. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, not knowing what to think. But what happened about an hour later was what really changed everything. Madison uploaded another story. The image clearly showed a beach, light sand, the sea in the background, and people walking near the water. It did not look like she was the one recording the video because you could see both of them, Madison and the same guy from the bar, walking together. She was wearing a light beach dress, and he had on a white t-shirt and sunglasses. They were both laughing. At one point, they walked towards the water. Then he grabbed her by the waist. Madison did not pull away. On the contrary, she moved closer and kissed him. The video barely lasted about 8 or 9 seconds, but no more was needed to perfectly understand what was happening. Overlaid on the video, there was a phrase in white letters. Love knocks on your door when you least expect it. I stared at the screen for several seconds, completely motionless. I had seen exaggerated stories, people making fools of themselves, and couples arguing publicly on social media. But I never thought something like this would come from the person I had been living with for 4 years. First, I felt disbelief, then a very clear anger mixed with something harder to explain. It was not just jealousy. It was the feeling that I was being disrespected in a public, direct, almost intentional way. Because this was not something private, it was not an isolated mistake, it was a post visible to anyone who followed her account. I took a deep breath a few times to try to calm down. Then I picked up the phone and called her. The phone rang for a few seconds. For a moment, I thought she would not answer, but in the end, she did. Hello. Her voice sounded completely normal, calm, as if nothing strange were happening. Madison, I said, I just saw your story. There was a short silence. Then she let out a sigh. Yeah, I figured you would see it. What does that mean? Another brief silence. When she spoke, her tone surprised me. She did not sound nervous or ashamed. She sounded resigned. I am sorry, Ryan. That was the first thing she said. You are sorry, I replied. I just saw a video of you kissing another guy. I know. Then explain to me what is going on. She took a few seconds before answering. It just happened, she finally said. Sometimes love is like that. For a moment, I thought I had heard wrong. Love is like that. Yeah. She kept speaking with a calmness that threw me off. Ryan, I met someone, and I know it sounds bad, but I cannot ignore what I am feeling. I stayed silent for a few seconds, trying to process it. You were telling me you met a guy yesterday in a bar, and now you are talking as if you are in love. I am not saying I am in love yet, she replied. But I feel something very strong. That was when I felt my patience starting to break. Madison, we have been together for 4 years. I know. You live with me. I know. And I have been paying for practically everything for 6 months. There was another silence. I know, Ryan. Then explain to me how you can do something like this and also post it. She sighed. Because I do not want to keep pretending. That answer left me completely confused. Pretending. You and I were not okay anymore, she said. It is just that neither of us wanted to say it out loud. That is not true. Maybe not for you. Her tone remained calm, almost cold. Things changed a long time ago, she continued. When I lost my job, everything became different. Different in what sense? I felt stuck, lost, like I was living a life that was not mine. I did not know what to say to that, and she went on. And then I came on this trip and met someone who made me feel alive again. I felt a mixture of disbelief and frustration. Are you hearing yourself? Yes. And it does not seem crazy to you. Maybe it is, she answered. But I cannot control what I feel. She took a small pause and then added, Love does not work with logic. That was when I felt I could not take it anymore. Madison, this is not love. You met that guy less than 24 hours ago. She did not reply immediately. When she did, her voice sounded firmer. I do not care who is against this. That sentence surprised me. What? My friends are also mad at me, she said. We argued this morning. Why? Because they say I am ruining the trip. And what happened? Did they leave? I asked, not quite believing it. Yes, they actually left. They changed hotels. That left me completely thrown off. So, you are alone? Yes. And you are okay with that? Yes, she answered without hesitation. Because at least now I am being honest with myself. At that moment, honestly, I no longer knew if I was talking to the same person I had known for 4 years. Madison, I started, but she interrupted me. Ryan, listen to me. Her tone had changed. It was no longer soft or evasive. Now she sounded firmer, more direct. I do not want to argue with you. Then stop saying things that make no sense. They are not senseless. There was a brief silence, and then she dropped a sentence that I still have etched in my mind. Just let me be a free soul. For a second, I thought she was joking. It sounded so out of place that it almost seemed like a parody. But no, she told me to just let her live this. And you should move on, she continued. I felt a kind of emptiness in my chest. When I get back, she added, we can figure out how I will get my things. And that was it. She hung up. I stared at the phone for several seconds without reacting. Everything had happened too fast. The call did not even last 10 minutes. For years summarized in an absurd conversation from a beach. I sat in silence for a good while, and then I started to think. There was something that kept spinning in my head. For the last 6 months, I had been paying for practically everything, including the apartment lease, the food, and the utilities. I had also covered her flight for that trip, and on top of that, I had given her access to one of my credit cards. But that was not all. The phone she was recording those videos on, the iPhone, I had also bought it for her the year before for her birthday, and it was still on my family plan, linked to my Apple ID. At that moment, I made a clear, direct decision. I opened my banking app, found the card she had registered in her digital wallet, and reported it lost, effectively deactivating it. Then, I logged into my Apple account. I located the device that was under her name and initiated a remote lock. The whole thing took me less than 10 minutes. I left the phone on the table, and surprisingly, I slept well that night. The next morning, around 9, my cell phone started ringing. It was an unknown number. I answered. Hello. On the other side, I heard her voice immediately. Ryan. She sounded completely different from the night before. Now she was nervous. What did you do? What do you mean? My cell phone is not working, she said quickly. I tried to turn it on several times, and it says it has been locked by the owner. I waited a few seconds before answering. Yes. There was a short silence. Did you also cancel the card? Yes. This time the silence was longer. When she spoke again, she no longer sounded calm. Ryan, why would you do that? Do you really need me to explain it to you? Yes. Now her tone held an edge of annoyance. I am in another state, and I have no money. That sounds complicated. I cannot pay for the hotel. I understand. The card does not work anywhere. I know. Her breathing became heavier. How am I supposed to get back? I took a few seconds before answering, and then I said exactly what I thought. I do not know. Total silence. Then I added, ask the one. And I hung up. There was nothing more to say. I sat in silence for a few minutes, looking at the coffee table in our living room. It is funny how fast the way you see a person can change. The day before, I still thought of Madison as my partner, someone with whom I shared a life. Now, the only thing I felt was disappointment and exhaustion. It was not an explosive rage. It was rather that cold feeling that something had ended forever. I got up and went to the bedroom. The apartment was still full of her things. She had clothes in the closet, shoes by the door, makeup in the bathroom, and half-read books on the nightstand. I stood for a few seconds looking at the open closet. Then I started taking everything out without drama, without visible anger. I simply found a large moving box I had in storage and started packing her things, like t-shirts, dresses, shoes, and makeup products. Then another box, and another one. I was at it for almost 2 hours. When I finished, there were 5 boxes stacked next to the front door. I did not intend to have them there for weeks. Madison had said she wanted to be a free soul, so I decided her things could also be free outside my house. I was sitting in the living room when I heard loud knocking on the door. I opened it. It was her father. I knew him well. A man in his 50s with a strong character, always speaking as if he were giving orders. But this time, he was clearly furious. He did not even say hello. You are a real piece of work, he blurted out immediately. You left my daughter stranded. I did not answer. I just opened the door wider. It is a good thing you came, I told him. That way, you can take her things. He stared at me, confused. Then he saw the boxes inside the apartment. What is all this? Her things. I turned, took the first box, and set it in the hallway outside the door. Then I went for another. His annoyance increased immediately. You canceled her cards? He asked with an aggressive tone. How is she supposed to get home now? I did not answer. I took another box and carried it towards the door. I am talking to you. I kept walking. Are you deaf or what? I left another box outside. And that was when he completely lost his patience. He grabbed my shirt. I am talking to you, you pathetic kid, he said. How are you going to fix this? How is my daughter going to come back? I looked at him directly, then pushed his hand away. Do not touch me. Answer me. At that point, I no longer had any reason to keep my calm with him. You have some nerve, I said, my voice low and steady. Coming to my home to demand money after what she did. His expression changed instantly. Excuse me. I kept talking. Your daughter made her choice. Do not come to my door asking me to pay for it. That was what made him explode. He swung at me. It was not anything technical, but it was strong enough to make me take a step back. I felt the sharp impact on my left eye. I did not react by returning the hit. The only thing I did was push him back so he would step away. "Take the boxes," I told him. The pain was starting to set in, and I already knew that I was going to be black in a short time. Madison's father kept breathing heavily, clearly beside himself. Even so, he ended up calming down enough to start picking up the boxes. He took them one by one to his truck. We did not exchange another word. When he finally left, I closed the door. I went to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. My eye was already swollen. I took out my phone and took a picture of it. I stood there for a few minutes, thinking. Then I left the apartment and headed straight to the nearest police precinct. I did not want to make a huge legal drama, but I was not going to act as if nothing happened after someone hit me inside my own home, either. So I filed a simple assault report. Nothing more. The following days were weird and quiet, but in a strange way. Madison did not call me again. I assumed she would be busy trying to solve the chaos she had gotten herself into. A couple of days later, Hannah, the friend who had texted me before, contacted me again. She told me what had happened afterward. Apparently, the guy stayed with Madison for a few more days after she separated from the group. They partied, toured the city, and went to the beach together. But all that lasted a short time, maybe 3 or 4 days at most. Afterward, the guy simply disappeared. He stopped replying to messages. He did not answer calls. According to Hannah, no one from the group ever saw him again. And Madison was left alone, without the guy, without her friends around, and without money. Days later, she finally made it back to Chicago. She did not try to contact me, and I honestly had no intention of talking to her either. The police investigation took its course. Since there was evidence of the injury and the incident occurred inside my residence, Madison's father had to take legal responsibility. In the end, he ended up paying a small settlement to cover my medical checkup and to close the matter without it going to court. It was not a large sum, but it was enough to close the chapter. Since then, I have not heard anything from Madison. And to be honest, I am not interested, either. For years of a relationship ended in the most absurd way possible. All over an Instagram story from a beach and over someone who decided that an unexpected love was worth more than the reality she had. If someone had told me something like this a year ago, I probably would have thought it was an exaggeration, but now I know it is not. Comment. I truly believe that the toughest moments in our lives are often the ones that lead us to the most important realizations about our worth. When someone chooses to walk away or dismiss your kindness, it is a clear sign that you need to start prioritizing your own peace of mind. Setting firm boundaries is not about being cold or vindictive, but about protecting the space you have created for your future growth. We all have to take responsibility for the choices we make, and sometimes that means facing the consequences alone. Healing begins the moment you stop trying to fix a situation that was never meant to be and start pouring that energy back into yourself. Never regret being a kind and supportive person, because your willingness to give reflects your character, not theirs. It is okay to close a door completely when the person on the other side no longer respects the bridge you built together. Use these experiences as the foundation for a stronger version of yourself, one that knows exactly what it deserves. I hope you always find the courage to choose your own well-being over a past that no longer serves you. Keep moving forward with your head held high, knowing that the right path is always the one where you feel respected and at peace. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.